Our story begins with Suhayu, a challenger in the Tower of Trials, who is mage-type fighter. Suhayu is in the dead zone level in the tower, fighting against giant centipede-like monsters with their brains sticking out of their exoskeleton. There's someone watching Suhayu fight. He is impressed at Suhayu and cheers him on in the fight. He wonders if Suhayu can pull through, as he watches him struggle, particularly in this fight. This voice is none other than Sumi, a god chosen by Suhayu to be his sponsor. All of a sudden Suhayu panics as the fight goes on. In the end Suhayu was defeated in the Tower of Trials, with his right leg completely missing, and a giant centipede claw sticking through his right abdomen. Our challenger is still smiling till the end, knowing he was powerless against the creatures. Sumi watches from afar, only feeling disappointed of the challenger defeat, saying if only Suhayu picked a melee weapon, when his talent began to mature, he would have killed them all. He questions, is it really over for our challenger? Was it just the inevitable defeat? All of a sudden a dice out thin air appears and starts rolling towards our challenger. A constellation sponsor of Hahi uses his ownership stakes and rolls the dice of destiny. The dice stops on a 2. And then fades into white. Sometime later we are at a cafe. A girl Heejong tells Soo-hyuk that she is a regressor. Soo-hyuk, after drinking a pint of beer depressed from recently being dumped, begins to call her a crazy bee. He goes on saying, if you're going to keep telling me lies, I'm going to go home. As he starts to get up, suddenly, she grabs her drunk friend's wrist and tells him that we don't have time and he needs to listen carefully to what she has to say. He looks at her wondering why is she so serious all of a sudden. Soo-hyuk begins to ask what's the matter and what's the urgency. Heejong goes on and tells him that there will soon be a Tower of Trials on Earth, whether if he wants to believe it or not. He then giles at his friend, what trials, and is he being teased because he got dumped, while slamming his wrist down on the table. Suddenly Soo-hyuk is sitting down at the table, in a passive demeanor. Heejong goes on to tell him to listen to her carefully, because this is really important. In a docile manner he listens patiently to Heejong's words. She explains to just remember these 3 important things. First, at the start of the trials, never open your status window. Second, make a contract with the shabbiest looking god before reaching the 6th floor. And last, no matter what happens during the talent enlightenment, no matter absolutely what, you must select a weapon as his choice. Soo-hyuk starts scratching his head, wonder if she really is joking or not. She then says it again, you only must remember these 3 things. Nothing else. Again. 1. Never open the status window. No matter how frustrated you get, don't open it. Even if it's 1 second, do not open the status window. If you open the status window, it will lead to regression or whatever. Basically meaningless. He then responds with an okay, wondering what's really going on. Second. Up to the 5th floor there's going to be a tutorial. Some of the gods will ask to enter a sponsorship contract with them. No matter the offer, do not do that. She explains, even if it's the god of light, the god of war, even if you think that god seems really powerful. If that asks you to enter a contract, do not do it and never pay attention to the words they have to say. She continues to explain that once the tutorial is completed, before going to the 6th floor there will be a resting area. She tells him you must get a contract with the shabbiest looking god. Got it? He looks at her puzzled, thinking that this is a joke. She then yells 3. When your talent blossoms it must be a weapon. Definitely a weapon. Pick the weapon. A sword, an axe, or a spear. Those type of items with a demanding expression while slamming her hands on the table. She threatens him, telling if he selects a wand, a bow, or some strange-looking artifacts she will kill him. Of all the questions she gives, Soo-hyuk is bewildered at the last question, asking why. He loves magic. A game that he has played. He is usually a mage. He reminisces on how whenever he would cast a fireball, it would always start a huge commotion, eventually leading to people adding him as a friend. Still in a drunken stupor while laughing at his achievements, Hee-jong begins to become irritated. She starts to shout at Soo-hyuk, telling him he has no talent for magic, saying his only talent may be smashing enemies on the head with a staff. He responds back antagonize, saying he doesn't lie and that he only plays as a mage when he plays video games. Understand? She begins to pummel Soo-hyuk in the head, telling him to don't open the status window, don't make contracts, and finally choose only a weapon. That's it. She then feels relieved that she passed the message to him. As she starts to continue speaking, suddenly, a message board appears before both of them, telling them as of now, according to the law, the green belt of Zone C66432 has been suddenly lifted. C66432 has selected 1 million climbers to begin the Tower of Trials. The message board continues on, saying that if you fail to conquer the Tower of Trials, the ownership, 66432 territorial zone will be forfeited. And with that the message board vanished without a trace. Soo-hyuk, still in disbelief on what just took place, starts to ask Hee-jong what's going on and wasn't this just a joke. He then realizes that he can't communicate with Hee-jong. All voice capabilities have been disabled in the world. Hee-jong starts talking with her fingers, and mouths out to Soo-hyuk to please remember her words. Soo-hyuk, giving Hee-jong a firm expression that he got this, starts realizing Hee-jong is really a regressor. Suddenly both individuals started to warp to another location. Soo-hyuk is panicking at this point, still having questions to ask his friend. Then suddenly both parties vanish. As the tower started to begin, its system alters suddenly. A hidden message has appeared. Based on the related law G14812, the basic system of the Tower of Trials will be adjusted. The tower updates. From now on, the Tower of Trials can impose unfair contracts on the climber. It also says, climbers can be deliberately deceived. The system update has ended. Soo-hyuk appears in a white clean room. He is greeted with a message that he has been selected to be a climber based on relation law G14823. Soo-hyuk is given options to choose one of the equipment visible in front of him, so he can be prepared for the upcoming battle. He looks around, wondering if this is the Tower of Trials Hee-jong mentioned. A message then appears, telling Soo-hyuk to choose a weapon. Depending on his weapon choice he chooses, his profession will be classified to it. He only gets one opportunity for talent enlightenment, so he must choose wisely on his decision. As he reads the message, he starts recalling Hee-jong words, to only choose a sword, or a spear-like weapon. He suddenly starts to relapse after seeing a wand displayed before him. He's about to grab the wand but recalls Hee-jong's voice, saying that I couldn't use magic. I would only be able to run around smashing enemies in the head with the staff, was her direct words. He decides to follow her decision and to listen to what the regressor has to say. Soo-hyuk begins to choose a shabby longsword as his weapon of choice. He analyzes the sword. The description is that the sword looks unimpressive, and it seems like it could break at any moment. Regardless, it can still kill something. He chooses the long sword as his weapon of choice. Another message appears before him telling him to open the status window. Just say status window for the tutorial. The message board goes on saying the status window is an element that greatly helps climbers in the Tower of Trials. It can also enhance the climber abilities through the status window. Soo-hyuk gulps, reading the message only saying the regressor name, Hee-jong. The message board starts to update more. telling Soo-hyuk if he opens the status window now, he would be awarded 5 stat points which can be used to enhance his abilities. With this, the climbers will have the capability to check their stats points, and also their level of growth as they climb the tower. Climbers that do not open the status window will face limitations on using their skills. The status window starts to change, and a countdown of 5 minutes starts to begin. He questions whether or not is opening the status window really okay. He continues to listen to Hee-jong's words. He must follow her orders unconditionally. He begins getting more pissed just thinking about it. This reminded him, making it seem like a slave contract. The countdown continues on, coming at 1 minute and 13 seconds left. Then 49 seconds left. He starts sweating, telling himself that he will never say it. 10 seconds left. He's sweating profusely at this point. Millions of thoughts starts going through his head. Can I trust Hee-jong's words? If she's a regressor, couldn't she handle it alone? Why would she need me? It says there will be restrictions on acquiring and using skills. I'm going to just die worthless. What do I do? What if Hee-jong is mistaken? Shall I shout it out? He gets a message. Time limit is over. A new message appears telling him that he did not open the status window. Therefore you will be sent to the tutorial of the trial tower first floor. We commend your challenging choice, the message stated. Soo-hyuk unbelieved that he is still alive. Suddenly the ground lights up underneath him. The system updates. As climber Kwon Soo-hyuk did not open the status window, he will gain the title of Challenger. Therefore, Challenger Kwon Soo-hyuk does not receive the disadvantages from the stat increase imposed by using the status window. Kwon Soo-hyuk trial tower difficulty level is adjusted to the existing Challenger stage. From now on, deities are allowed to enter after changing their constellation names. You can use your original deity from the 6th floor onwards. Soo-hyuk suddenly appears in what seems like an underground mine shaft. The message board appears telling the challenger to eliminate all enemies. He is given a time limit of 17 hours and 59 minutes. Annihilate all enemies, he says. Soo-hyuk starts to look around, barely able to see what's in front of him. It's pretty dark in here. He starts walking forward, telling himself to calm down. It's just a tutorial. Everything will be fine. He starts charging forward like a maniac, while swinging his sword. Soo-hyuk is relieved now. See, there's nothing here. I was worried for nothing, hahaha, right. As he takes another step forward, an arrow shoots in the air in the direction of Soo-hyuk. He drops low just to avoid the arrow from taking out his head. As he takes another step forward, trying to find balance from the first initial attack, 5 more arrows come streaming at him, barely missing him. He lunges down towards the floor. He couldn't believe just that quick he almost died. He starts analyzing the floor, deciding where he should walk. Suddenly another arrow comes flying at him, grazing his left arm, causing blood to come out. He couldn't believe to be in this state after just saying those words. All of a sudden a green creature appears above him, hanging from the rapids with a dagger in his hand. It quickly does a swift lunge at Soo-hyuk. Soo-hyuk, barely avoiding the attack, steps several steps backwards. He's wondering what is it this time. It appears to be a goblin assassin having fun with this encounter, telling Soo-hyuk that he is lucky for dodging his ambush attack. Soo-hyuk is surprised to be fighting a goblin assassin. He starts understanding the encounter for his opponent and is trying to find a way to widen the gap between them. The goblin then calls him a fool, then pulls out a crossbow. At this point, it's clear to him now that the last arrow that pierced him wasn't from a trap. Soo-hyuk starts to charge the goblin assassin to close the gap between them. The goblin assassin, locked on to Soo-hyuk, only laughs, saying that it's too late, human. The arrow is soon released from the hatch aimed at the direction of Soo-hyuk. Soo-hyuk, with quick thinking, ducked the arrow. As he continued charging toward the goblin, he knew his physical attributes is better. He's determined to get to him before he reloads. As Soo-hyuk was about to strike, the goblin assassin does a swift counter move and uses the hidden dagger to attack him. Only grazing Soo-hyuk, he starts to do his own counter move, saying, "Now it's my turn," from behind. He strikes the goblin, completely beheading it. Shocked from the adrenaline rush, he couldn't believe he did it. He proceeds to head towards the body to take its weapon just in case. He starts to feel dizzy and collapses next to the goblin. He's wondering, why does he feel like this? Soo-hyuk can't move. He realizes that the dagger from the previous attack contained the assassin's own handmade poison. The system tells Soo-hyuk to take care of the crude dagger with affection, and it will be in good condition. Soo-hyuk soon begins to drift into darkness. The handmade poison has been applied. A system update appears in the darkness, stating that Soo-hyuk has passed the first floor. His agility has increased by 1. He gets another message saying that his agility has been increased by 0.3. Soo-hyuk gets another message saying he defeated a goblin assassin for the first time. His strength and agility increased by 2. Since he defeated a goblin assassin that uses poison, he acquired a new ability. Level 1 Toxic Resistance. Soo-hyuk, now regaining consciousness from the poison, starts spitting out blood. As he was recovering from it, he understands that this goblin creature was extremely dangerous. It hits him that the time limit was steadily going down when he lost consciousness. And now he's at 11 hours and 57 minutes. 5 hours or so, he says. He grabs the assassin dagger, plus his crossbow and his arrows. With more confidence and some new weapons at his disposal, Soo-hyuk is saying to himself that he's going to make it out alive. Soo-hyuk proceeds to move forward, only to step on another floor trap. An arrow comes flying by his head, barely managing to dodge it. He says he can barely avoid it, adjusting to the speed of the arrows. He decides to test his theory. He purposely triggers 2 floor traps, causing 2 arrows to fly into his direction. He manages to avoid those arrows as well. Soo-hyuk continues to trigger the traps as they keep flying by him, barely managing to hit him. The more traps he avoids, he says, the easier it is to pass. He starts to wonder if his physical abilities improve because of his talent. He continues on going through the underground cave, setting off traps. Soo-hyuk is increasing his abilities each trap he sets off. He notices someone coming from the distance. 2 goblins are leisurely taking a rest. Soo-hyuk thinks to himself he can easily shoot one first, then deal with the other in a 1v1. He carefully aims his crossbow at the goblins. He locks into one of the goblins. Before he can fire, he hears a subtle screech from behind. Soo-hyuk turns around to face the sound, only to avoid another near-fatal shot. The 2 goblins that were resting suddenly sprung into action with weapons in their hands, heading towards Soo-hyuk. Underestimating the goblins' prowess, he knows that they were just only bait, and now he fell into their trap. Fighting the goblins in the darkness is a disadvantage to Soo-hyuk. Realizing he has to go to a place that has some light if he's going to stand a chance, he sees an open area that has some light, and turns around to make his stand. Suddenly another arrow comes flying at him from the darkness. Luckily, he was able to visually see it this time. However, the most immediate threat is the 2 goblins in front of him, ready to kill him. He notices the connection between the 2. Soo-hyuk gets a notification that they are a goblin couple acting as one. Reminiscing as the fight begins. Just a day ago he also had a girlfriend. But because of the tower. If I wasn't dragged in here, I could have been with her, as he says this angrily while delivering a powerful strike from above, splitting the male goblin into two. The wife, standing, becomes paralyzed of witnessing her beloved partner executed by Soo-hyuk, starts crying. Soo-hyuk, knowing that he killed her mate, knows that she's about to be angry any second. She instantly becomes enraged, leaping at Soo-hyuk, ready to kill him without a second thought. Having no choice as he regrets his actions, he tells her she's not going to heaven. Now die. He does an upward thrust and beheads the goblin wife as well. As she fades away, she's sad that she couldn't get her revenge. She apologizes to her late husband as she dies. Soo-hyuk, now only having to deal with the guy that's shooting the arrows in the dark, becomes immediately pissed, asking whoever is in the dark if they are a couple as well. A soft squeak from the darkness shouts out, "No, he is not a couple." He asks, how can he trust a coward who hides and shoots arrows in the darkness? The small voice responds, saying that Soo-hyuk can trust him. With a kind gesture, Soo-hyuk in a friendly gesture tells the person if they want to come out, and if he comes out now, he will kill them in a comfortable way. A shadow emerges from the darkness. A small goblin child is standing there crying. His speech is broken as he knows he's about to get killed. A system message appears saying that it's a young goblin. A small goblin that's not old enough to fight. If feels threatened, he doesn't comes out from the darkness. Soo-hyuk wonders why is a young goblin here and asks him. The crying goblin lashes out, calling Soo-hyuk, calling him stupid, and it's a goblin duty. Soo-hyuk then becomes irritated by the goblin's audacity of not understanding the situation that it's in. He asks him, is he crazy, and does the goblin child really want to die? The goblin child, struck with fear, starts crying and apologizing to Soo-hyuk. Soo-hyuk, easing off, tells the goblin child to answer his questions, and if he does, he will let him go. The goblin child, still in fear of the human, brightens a little and tells the Soo-hyuk to ask away. Soo-hyuk asks the goblin child what is his purpose being here. The goblin child says to stop him, and to do his duty as a goblin. With an evil grin, Soo-hyuk smiles, saying, really? I guess it can't be helped. He really doesn't want to kill a child. The goblin child starts bawling at this and streams of tears roll down its face. Soo-hyuk, approaching with sword in hand, tells him that we have to do our duty, don't we? As he continues to walk toward it. The goblin child immediately shouts out that he doesn't have to keep his duty. Soo-hyuk declines the goblin, saying, no. You just said that he has to do his duty. The goblin child continues on, saying no, it doesn't have to follow its duties. He calms it down, saying it's about to end. And don't worry about it. He starts to wonder the system mechanics. Is the goblin he's talking about? Does it mean yourself? Soo-hyuk is in disbelief whether or not the system is playing a trick on him. And what if the goblin child may not be included as an enemy? If he doesn't kill him, will the quest break? The goblin child begins to get Soo-hyuk attention, waving his hands in a childlike manner, telling him that Soo-hyuk can trust him, and he won't hit him in the back of the head. Soo-hyuk is feeling bad for the creature and wonders if he should have killed him before he set sights on the child. Now he feels weak for no reason. The time limit is steadily counting down, with only 10 hours and 10 minutes left. The goblin child pleads with Soo-hyuk, telling him that there's no need to fight. Soo-hyuk, contemplating about this, asks himself that couldn't he just kill him later? He finally comes to a conclusion and tells the goblin child he won't kill him. The goblin child instantly smiles with joy, knowing that his life has been spared. A hidden system update appears. A new quest called Salvation of the Young Goblin. This is a hidden quest that's only accessible on the first floor, about the hidden sorrows of the goblin race. Meanwhile, Hee-jong is going through her own tutorial. Hee-jong looks like to have selected a staff as her choice of weapon. She is hiding from 3 goblins that are looking for her. She thinks to herself that she would have never thought her tutorial would be so different. She regrets opening the status window and thinks things would be so different if she haven't. Hee-jong is nervous about her friend. She just hopes that Soo-hyuk is being careful so far. Hee-jong looks like she's preparing a fireball for her pursuers. She tells herself this time she will definitely make it to Soo-hyuk, as she launches the fireball at them. The scene cuts back to Soo-hyuk and his new companion. Soo-hyuk is going over some conditions that must be set in order for the goblin child to travel with him. First, he will tie his hands. Of course, refusal is unacceptable. The goblin child happily agrees and calls Soo-hyuk stupid. Soo-hyuk gets mad and asks if the goblin child really wants to get killed. The goblin child lets out a shriek and quickly starts apologizes. Soo-hyuk hits him on the top of the head, telling him to be quiet. He starts looking around trying to find an object that might be useful to bind the goblin hands. He uses the rope and ties the goblin hands. He mockingly asks how is it and does he like it. The goblin child gets mad. He asks him, would you like it if you were in my place, human? Soo-hyuk sees something and asks him what is he doing. The goblin child, becoming more irritated, shouts back, what are you talking about? Soo-hyuk sees a shiny object hanging off his neck as he proceeds to walk towards him. The goblin child nervously starts backing away, telling him no way you can't. Soo-hyuk grabs the child by the neck and says, what do you mean I can't, while holding him forcefully. Soo-hyuk is holding a young goblin's child ruby necklace. It's a necklace that the young goblin cherishes. It has a mysterious shine to it. There seems to be something inside of it. Sort of like a secret. Soo-hyuk, holding the necklace, asks the child, what is this? Then proceeds to blackball the child, saying that the necklace is the price of his life and to pay his own taxes, with a greedy smile. The goblin child lets out a yelp, saying he can't take it. Soo-hyuk, becoming more angry, asks him if he wants to die, telling him a omen that your wrist will fly away when you lie. The goblin child lets out a gasp, telling him he speaks the truth. He can't give it to him. Soo-hyuk, having hearing enough, tries to snatch the necklace off the goblin child. He is stunned afterwards because he realizes that the necklace really won't come off the child. The goblin child, handing in the air, only looks at Soo-hyuk with a bland expression. Soo-hyuk lets the goblin child down and apologizes. He wonders if it's an bound item, and if he kills it, will he drop the item? The goblin child becomes more afraid, saying, no, please don't kill me. Soo-hyuk looks back at him with a smile, saying he was only joking. The goblin child only thinks that this particular human is a savage. Soo-hyuk, avoiding the awkwardness, and tells the child they must proceed because of the timer. As they continue walking through the mine, Soo-hyuk asks the goblin child what is his name. The goblin child responds back that a goblin is just a goblin. Becoming agitated, Soo-hyuk didn't believe the child and angrily asks what is his name. The goblin child looks at him with complete innocence, sad that he doesn't have a name. Soo-hyuk actually starts feeling bad for the child for not having a name. Soo-hyuk is looking at the child and it reminds him of a famous movie character he has seen. He thinks of the name Dobby. Yes, Dobby. He goes on and tells him, going forward your name is Dobby. Dobby now is pissed and tells him no, that it's just goblin and nothing else. He tells Dobby to not talk and let's continue moving forward. Soo-hyuk starts thinking to himself, what kind of conversation will he have with Dobby? Before Soo-hyuk could take the next step, Dobby lets out a shriek, telling to watch it, you're about to step on a trap. Soo-hyuk asks how does he know that? Dobby with innocent eyes gets excited and tells him it's very simple to notice them. With a cute smile, Dobby tells Soo-hyuk that goblins can see in the darkness easily. Soo-hyuk becomes irritated, wondering if he pretended to not tell him until he got right next to the trap. Dobby, looking with innocent eyes at Soo-hyuk, is expecting some praise for telling him. Soo-hyuk only looks at him with disgust but must bear it because he seems to be useful. He tells Dobby nice job as he patting him on the head. He continues on saying and if he sees any more enemies or traps in the future he must tell him. Dobby agrees, telling him that he will let him know if coming across any of these things. Dobby spots some more traps in the distance. He tells Soo-hyuk all the locations on where the traps are placed. Soo-hyuk wonders if Dobby is really useful and starts to test out the traps, informing Dobby to stand back. He knows these traps are useful and can help him improve his stats. Soo-hyuk runs through the traps, avoiding the arrows that are coming at him. He starts to test a theory on the more traps he avoids. His reaction time gets better. Dobby looks in amazement as Soo-hyuk dodges the traps. Soo-hyuk becomes cocky, saying of course this is the body for the hope of mankind. As he moves through the mine, he encounters 2 more goblin assassins and a goblin warrior. Soo-hyuk looks completely drained. He's wondering why the mine is so long, and it's already been 2 hours where they have been walking continuously non-stop. As he starts reaching his breaking point, Dobby lets out a squeak, telling him they're here. We have finally reached the boss room. It's been 11 hours since the start of the trial. Soo-hyuk has 7 hours and 3 minutes left to destroy all remaining enemies. Soo-hyuk becomes hyped and is ready to face the boss. Thank you for watching this series. For part 2, please reply in the comments section Regressor. Also like and subscribe to receive weekly updates on the next upcoming videos.